Hello, Connection Coders. Welcome to the Connection Codes podcast, where we break open our emotions that take us from feeling disconnected to connected in your relationship and with yourself. Before we get into today's episode, I want to tell you about a free resource that we currently have on our website that we are offering. We are actually doing a mini class that you can sign up for through connectioncodes.co. So go straight to our homepage, join in the class, and you are going to learn deeper insight into the brain science and how we were built, as well as how you can process emotion and do this core emotion wheel on your own. Everything is there, and you'll get the emails straight to your inbox so you can learn and grow with us. And I am so excited about this episode. Today, we are actually going to be breaking down some of the top reasons that people go to therapy, that couples go to therapy, and kind of diving deeper into what those things are and how people are finding help, what that looks like. I know Wes and I have been to therapy before, and I get asked from couples all the time, who did you use? What should we do? Where should we begin? And my answer has changed over the last few years. And so I'm excited to see how the Connection Codes is actually changing what therapy can look like. So let's dive in.
Well, hello, world.
Hi, friends. Wow, it's so exciting to be back in Florence, Alabama. For those of you who don't know, this is where we come to at the moment to do our podcast, and we're here with Tira, so thank you, Tira.
Yes.
And therapy. Wow. You know, I didn't grow up with therapy. Matter of fact, as many of you know, I grew up in Germany, so even that term I was not familiar with at all. And coming to the States, I don't remember even knowing about that. And yet, you know, early in our married life, I remember we were in a drive-through, and I don't know if we were getting food or going to the bank. And I said to you, you need therapy.
Which is really helpful.
Do you remember that?
Oh, wait, it wasn't helpful at all.
But isn't that crazy that I can remember being in the car, you were driving, and we were going through a drive-through, and I said to you, you need therapy. Didn't go over well. And I was that desperate though. You know, I was desperate for help, and I didn't understand what was happening with you, and I didn't have the language to talk about or to ask what's happening. I didn't know about emotions. So for me, what I was experiencing was so confusing. And so at this point, I would say I was probably in my mid-20s when I said that. So somehow at that point, I knew that therapy was a thing, but I had never experienced it personally. But I remember saying that to you, and it was very, very hurtful. Yeah.
We were so lost and desperate, and that came out of your desperation. And you were sort of correct, although certainly at that point, it was many years before I became a therapist. And I think societally at that point, there was a mentality of, that it's only sick, messed up, damaged people that need therapy, go to therapy, whatever.
Well, and I think that's why it was so wounding to you, because when I said you need therapy, it pointed all the fingers at you, and it also said you're whacked out, which is what, I think in that moment in my life, I don't remember thinking that you were whacked out. I just knew that I didn't know how to help you. And I so desperately wanted help, but I didn't know. And, it is interesting because I guess with some people, that kind of statement would open the possibility of getting some help. But for the two of us, it shut it. It was almost like a coffin, and that was the nail that really closed it. And, it's fascinating that all the years later, you became a therapist and in a topic and in a world that was very painful for you early on.
Yeah, and I would have never thought that I would end up here, and really viewed therapist as a pretty negative, which I think that a lot of that came just from our culture. And the vast majority of the therapy model, Sigmund Freud, great descendants, we view things pathologically, that someone's broken, someone's messed up, someone's damaged. Of course, that's part of my dream, is to shift this societally so that we don't view a human experience as a pathology, but it's just what's happening with them in the moment. And of course, that's affected us so much for you to be able to see that, oh, that's just what happens with my guy. He experiences things differently than I do, and vice versa, for me to go, so that's what happens for you there. Well, I'll be darned. That's not how I experience it, but you're a valid human being. You have the right to experience what you experience.
Well, I think even once I moved back to the States, I feel like the culture all around me, which was my church community, was that only people that are really, really broken go to therapists. And so I never had someone speak about that topic with the idea that this can be your guide. This can be someone who comes along beside you. This can be someone who coaches you. And, it's interesting in sports, we're all about getting the best coaches, even for children. Like, oh my goodness, your kids get involved in gymnastics and you want the best coach. You want the best trainer. And I'm amazed at even a young age, we immediately see our kids, for them to become great, they need a coach, they need a guide. And yet in our marriages, we have such a negative view of therapy, and that and what's sad about it too, when you think about it, and I know this is your experience, that most of the time people wait until things are so bad, which is the opposite of sports. We get the best coach possible at the beginning.
Even before there's even a problem.
Well, definitely before there's a problem. We get a coach to become the very best.
Just understood.
But in marriage, we don't get a coach to become and to live the very best in our marriage. It's often right before divorce that people come and search for a therapist because they are desperate. Maybe even, let's give it one more shot, or they want to have the ability to say, as they're signing their divorce papers, well, we did go to therapy. And so it's almost like, oh, okay.
Yeah, and it's interesting, of course you say that with so many things, certainly with sports, but with business as well, we get help. We reach out, and it's understood, and nobody's freaking out because, LeBron James has a coach. Well, arguably one of the greatest basketball players ever lived. He has a coach. Well, of course, and not only the coach for the team that he's on, but in his own life, and he has people that are helping him be successful. Well, why in the world is he looking to a coach? Well, everybody needs that. I think it's what we call cyclation, the opposite of cyclation. We all need outside input, but in the most crucial areas of life, such as marriage, such as parenting, such as finances, it's just kind of expected that, you're just going to somehow magically know this. You're just going to suddenly magically become a concert pianist and be an amazing musician. Like, well, how did you do that? I mean, could you? Is it possible? I guess, yeah. But all of us understand that, we need some input. We need some outside help. We need some coaching in these areas. Well, the same is true in the more crucial areas of life. So it's really bizarre that we've done that culturally to ourselves, and it's centuries old. It's not a new development.
Right. There's so much fear in therapy. There's the fear of admitting to your friends or family, like, I'm broken, because we're waiting to go to therapy when we're broken. There's the fear and the shame that comes with knowing that you need that. There is the fear of finding the right person. I know when Wes and I were looking, we went to the wrong person before we found the right person. And oftentimes people, I think, when they hit that first person that's not the right fit for them, they just stop. They just put all therapists into that basket. And they say, well, this just doesn't work for me. And not recognizing that it just may be a different personality type, or they have a different specialty. I have someone that I know that's wanting marriage therapy, but she's seeing a work therapist, and recognize like therapists even have different fields of focus. Like, you are a family and marriage therapist. So for someone to come to you looking for, which because of the connection codes, you can deal with everything. You're dealing with the human relation. But for the normal therapist, a work person cannot help you necessarily in your marriage relationship, or they don't have the tools to do that. And then also, we do wait until we're broken, and we do. I can remember needing to feel safe with our therapist because I was so angry. And we went to a Christian therapist. She's a pastor's wife. And I was like, I need to be able to say the F word, like I need to be able to feel my anger with this person. And so people don't know that they can be safe with somebody to share those things. Yeah. Wow. And so what are some of the reasons that you see people finally make that phone call? Like what tends to be people's breaking points to actually pick up or get online and make the appointment?
Yeah. Well, the big umbrella macro answer is just pain. When people experience enough pain at some point, and we actually say that just kind of in therapy training, that people will get help whenever the pain becomes so intense, which of course is heartbreaking to think, oh my gosh, you break your leg and you're okay for a day, a week, 6 weeks, and then at some point you're going to go to the doctor and deal with this broken leg. That's really, really sad. Our research tells us that people wait on average 6.5 to 7 years after disaster, after catastrophe, before they get help. And I'm thinking, which obviously this is a public forum, but it's heartbreaking to me when people come and sit in my office and they go, yeah, we've been disconnected for 6 years. We've been disconnected for 11 years. And I have a good poker face, but I'm sitting there thinking, oh my gosh. So we have 11 years of wounding we now have to process through, which that's my role, that's my vocation. But I'm thinking, man, I'd love to get this way back down there to 3 weeks where people are like, hey, we're struggling here. We're missing each other. We're not going to live like this. We want to live our best life every day because life consists of days, and that they get help much, much sooner. So, ultimately it's a pain issue. Although I do sit with a number of couples, it's a distinct minority, who come in and they say, hey, we like our marriage, we like each other, we enjoy each other, but we've heard that you can take us higher. Those are the fun ones. That's when it's like, whoa, this is going to be amazing. And they do find out over the coming weeks and months that, whoa, there's a whole nother level up here where we can go higher and higher, which has certainly been our experience. We've been married coming up on 40 years. And I'm startled. I'm thinking, dang, this is getting good. And I assume 5 years from now, I'm going to be like, oh, now we're getting it. Now we're on point. So, but in the micro, the more specific, obviously affairs are a huge catalyst. Of course, the sad point about that is if somebody has an affair in July, obviously I'm not agreeing with that. I'm not condoning it. I'm not justifying it. I'm not putting a check mark by it at all. But I want to know what was happening in June, what was happening in May. And I get it. The event of the affair is a big problem and is a big catalyst, but there was a problem in June. And what we do culturally is we say, oh, well, what happened in July is the issue. That's the problem. And yes, that's definitely a problem, but that's the symptom of the problem. There was a problem in June, May, April, however far back I can count. Backwards on the calendar. So that's what's happening with people. And so we want to get way, way, way back before that. And then people just not, and of course, affairs typically are a sexual relationship outside of the marriage issue. And so then you have sexual issues inside of the marriage where people are either not involved sexually at all, or they're really, really disconnected sexually.
I was thinking even before you mentioned the affair that in talking with people, there definitely is a fear component. Going back to the idea of in sports, that we look to get a really good coach before things obviously are bad. It's almost like I want to improve. I want to become the best. But, and I see that even with kids, where you don't even know in 5 years if they'll even be playing this sport, but their parents are like putting in and navigating it for them to get the very best. I think that what happens in marriage, it's like we have a disbelief that things actually can be better. And it probably goes back to that idea of I married the wrong one. If I had just married the right one, then we wouldn't be having problems. And so it's kind of goes way back to our belief system. And, to think that I can definitely put money into putting my kids in all these sports and getting good, good coaches or private trainers or whatever it is. But that's because we believe our kids can actually become the next gold medal winner of the Olympics. But in our marriages, I think we go, no, this is as good as it gets. Or we think that the problem is, I just married the wrong one. And then I think the fear aspect is I'm going to try to find a good therapist and I'm going to spend all this money and nothing's going to change. And, it's interesting. I was also thinking about the world of, choosing like a diet company or a diet plan. And to believe that this could actually help you change, oftentimes you got to start with overcoming the fear of the failure of it not working. And it almost feels safer just to stay in the fear of this not working than to try something new with the chance of it not working. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And how at times our own fear base just stops us, which is so interesting because you think, well, what do you actually have to lose? If you think, and you, especially if you get a recommendation, like, so often when people come to you for therapy, they've heard of the connection codes. Right. They've heard others talk about the connection codes. And so when they find out that you take on, you have a private practice. And so people are like, well, there's been a referral. And yet it's I think often our own fear that keeps us even from those first steps. So we have to back up and figure out what's stopping me from trying to get a coach. And, even incredible coaches may not be your best coach.
Right. Yeah.
And to realize you have the right to say, okay, this may not be the best fit. And yet we have I guess it goes back to the stigma, right, about therapy that stops us.
Yeah. But I think for so many people too, I mean, going back to a big picture view, is that we have such a low level working definition of marriage in our culture today. I always say that our working definition of marriage is two people live at the same address for an extended period of time. And are they connected? We have no idea. We don't really even care that much. Are they having fun? We don't know. Are they glad to be together? We have no idea. But they're living at the same address, so we're winning culturally. And I think, wow, that's really intense that's our mentality. So people think, well, wait, we're married. We've been married for 3 years, 7 years, 15 years, because we still live at the same address. And so what we've done culturally is that we actually say that the certificate of divorce is the divorce. Yeah. We don't recognize that, no, if marriage is about a relationship, divorce is about the dissolution of that relationship. And if these two are not connected, and you and I lived divorced for many years. Yeah. We were not married. We were not connected. We were legally married, but we were not married. So I think for a lot of people, back to your question here, that a lot of people don't even think that there's something else. They think because they are living at the same address. So they're like, what? We're married. We still live at the same address. They don't know. Wow. And then it's only when the pain gets so intense. And then for another big push that I hear so much, and it always feels weird to say always or never, but I think that it's always the female feeling that she doesn't get anything from the male as far as relationship, as far as emotion, connection. I don't think I've ever heard the opposite, which feels weird to say. But I hear that a lot, that, the wife says, I don't know what's happening with him. I want to find out. I want to know him, and I don't know him. I don't know what's going on with him. And then on the other side, in the reverse, which again feels really weird to say, but he's so tired of her being mad. And of course she's mad because she can't figure out what's happening with him. And so, and one of the tricky things about us humans is we fill in the blank. We're going to fill in the blank. Right. Yeah. So if I don't know what's happening with Phyllis, I'm going to fill in the blank, maybe with 13 different things, all or most of which are incorrect. And so that's what's so crucial. Of course, Connection Codes 101 is that she tells me that I know. Now I know what's happening with her. Even if she's mad at me, even if she feels hurt by me, even if she, feels some shame with me, for her to tell me that, well, at least now I know. And then we can dance together and figure out what to do next.
I always love when you share that, because it's easy for me to picture that happening in my own marriage. We struggle with that a lot of, I'll be home all day with the kids. I have 4 kids, very young. And Wes comes home I am grumpy or frustrated, I've had a long day, and I'm not sharing with him all of the details because he's walked in the door. Now we need to do dinner. We need to get everybody ready for soccer. We're doing these things, but he knows that I'm off. And so because I haven't shared with him, he's filled in the blank.
Yep.
And that blank is always,
he's a smart guy.
She is mad at me because I was at work. And it has nothing to do with me being mad at him because he was at work. And so that is so true, by being able to freeze that and find out, so you're not filling in the blank. Where people have filled in the blank their entire marriage. So they have a narrative now in their head. I've had a conversation with somebody one time, and he was telling me all of these things about someone else I know very well, and the narrative he had created because he's been filling in the blanks for all of these years was so mind-blowing to me and heartbreaking. And so I definitely see that being a huge issue that leads to therapy. And another issue that I think about is we often wait until we can be like, they've done something wrong. You know, like we don't want to go when we think that we're the ones in the wrong. I had a friend who's actually met with y'all, and she was saying her husband, out of desperation, was like, I'm going to call them right now so they can tell you that you're wrong. And that's not what happened, you know. And even when Wes and I were in therapy, I remember sitting there in the beginning thinking, we're here because he screwed up. And of course, through the process, I unraveled my own mess and issues. But we wait until we can point the finger at someone else. And do you see that?
Well, that's part of the beauty, I believe, of the connection codes, is that we don't pathologize humans. We don't pathologize human behavior. I get it that this person chose poorly, made a bad choice, made a bad decision, but that's the symptom of what happened before that. And again, I'm not agreeing, I'm not condoning, I'm not check marking the poor decision. That stands alone. But something happened before that, and we have to find out what happened before, because otherwise we're just treating the symptom, which we do all the time.
Right.
So, you come into the doctor and you have a burnt hand, and so we medicate it, we do something with it, we bandage it, then you come in the next day and you have a burnt hand, and the next day, at some point we need to go, what's happening that you're burning your hand every day? Right. And you don't know that whatever, this stove is hot and it's not a great analogy, but you get the idea.
Yeah.
But this is what we do all the time, just treating the symptom, and we have to get back before that.
So I love that analogy and thinking. So I want to shift a little bit. And so what are some of the symptoms that you see? But then what is often the root issue that symptom is hiding? Yeah.
Well, I think I'll answer the second part first. I think for so many people, they just don't have the tools. They have no idea. As we've shared before, 24 hours before our wedding, we were excited about Happily Ever After. It was going to be amazing, and we did not need better intentions. And I think a lot of counseling, a lot of therapy tries to create better intentions. We don't need better intentions. We need better tools. And so, Phyllis and I had been beating on a nail with a broom for many years, and it wouldn't go in the wood. I mean, it barely did, but we needed a better tool. And now we have the tools, and it's just astonishing to me. So the first part of the question, which I now have blanked on, give me a hint.
Symptoms. What are some of the symptoms?
Oh, the
it's
symptoms.
Like an affair.
Right, yeah, exactly. The symptoms is just a disconnect, whatever that looks like, whether it's an affair, whether they just don't talk anymore, whether they fight all the time. Those are all symptoms of what's happening before that. And usually, and it's very dangerous to overgeneralize, but usually they're just pains that have not been processed. And for Phyllis and me, there were thousands and thousands and thousands of pains, and we had no idea what was happening. We had no idea that we were wounding. We didn't know what was causing the wounding. We just knew, we recognized the wounding after the fact, but we didn't know what was causing that wounding.
We had an interesting conversation this week with a couple where she expressed that she felt like her husband was addicted to ministry. And, even that wording is an unusual wording as far as being addicted to something. And as we kind of unpacked that whole conversation, it really just became a neon sign in the fact that her identity, it's like she's going through a time right now where she's just having an identity crisis. And, this is a strong faith-based couple. So her identity with Christ is solid. She's just, her identity with who she is in this time and in where she's living, moved recently. And her husband and his job, it's like his identity meter is out the roof every day. And then he gets to travel and he's on stage and he's magnificent at what he does, bigger than life. And so he comes home, you know, with his identity meter just skyrocket. It's his, if you think of it as a bank, his bank is full and she is at the very bottom trying to figure out who she is, you know, as a stay-at-home mom at the moment, you know, her kids' needs, her, you know, I think one of them is as an early teenager. Like there's just, and they've moved recently. So you kind of think immediately, okay, even your kids are in an identity crisis because they're meeting all new friends and everything is challenging. And as we unpack that with her, it's almost, you could see some light bulbs going off. Where, and I think that this is part of, you know, for so many of us, we want to change the logistics of our life. Right. Like her solution was basically, and she wouldn't say it because I kind of said it. So you want him just to quit his job. And then it was, we kind of unpacked that and going, so if he quit his job and he was with you every day, then your relationship would be good. And of course, as I said it, she just started shaking her head because she realized, no, that's not going to connect us. Just because he now is home, because now he, of course, her accusation was he's addicted to ministry, which is his job. And to realize, okay, we could take all that away and then y'all are going to be connected. And I think that sometimes the identity piece in our lives, and we go through seasons, you know, I have shared this where I think it was around January of 2021 that I had a personal identity crisis. And I didn't even know that's what it was till we all slowed down and really unpacked it. And what the way it looked for me is I just didn't even want to get out of bed in the morning. And it was like I had no motivation. Well, back that story up, I had sold my company that I had built. I sold it September 1st, which, you know, anytime you build a company, a successful company, what greater joy than to sell it. And, you know, a semi-retired, except then I joined Glenn in the Connection Code, so I didn't really retire at all. But I couldn't quite, in that shift, figure out who I was. I lost, you know, by selling my company, I lost all the friendships, in a sense, of the people that worked for me because I was seeing and connecting with them every day. And then my clients that I was talking to weekly or bi-weekly, and all of a sudden, that's all gone. They don't need me anymore. They don't call me anymore. They don't reach out to me anymore. And not to say we don't go for dinner every once in a while, but it's so different. And so I felt very lost in all of that, but I didn't realize it. So it's just an interesting thing that the identity piece within marriages can be such a huge factor in understanding, am I gaining identity? Am I losing identity in my marriage with you? But sometimes it's outside factors. Right. Like for me, my relationship with Glenn was fabulous. January 2021, we were doing great. So it's like, why can't, it didn't make sense that I didn't want to get out of bed. Well, back it up to my life change, huge life change of what I had been doing to what I now was doing. And it was all new and I wasn't exactly sure. And it changed even from how leaving the house versus staying home and being on a camera, mostly just a very big change.
Absolutely. And hearing you say that, I think about two different parts of that. One is how lucky during that season of you experiencing that hardship that you had the connection codes. Because if you had not been able to convey that was the issue, that it was an outside factor affecting your identity, I can't imagine what Glenn would have filled in the box with. You know, if suddenly your wife goes from Wes and I have we've connected on this, you and I, because we've experienced such similar things. I think a lot of women struggle with this identity piece at different times, especially in motherhood. And if your wife is thriving one day and then it seems like something great has happened. She sold her business and all these great things are happening, but she can't get out of bed. Well, it must be me. I must be the issue. Now she's spending all this extra time with me. So without the tools to help you through that, the tool didn't take away that identity issue. It didn't take away the pain, but it helped the two of you stay connected during that season.
Yeah.
And we all know, this was the second part, that identity is the number one fundamental human need.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And so I think oftentimes we have these symptoms, but a huge factor that's feeling it is the identity piece. We don't have the identity sexually with our partner. Yeah. And so, we're seeking out an affair, or we have anger. We're losing identity because they're not talking to us. So they must not like me. I don't have identity with them. I'm not safe with them. So then that leads to the anger and the resentment. So we have this huge identity piece. And that's what the connection codes does, is it gives you the opportunity to connect on who you are individually, who you are together. And it's so helpful. So at what point?
Well, I was about to say, Tira, it's just amazing to me, and it's thrilling because you kind of ruined my whole point, because that's exactly, as Phyllis was talking, I'm like, yeah, that's what a lot of it, because you say, what leads people to therapy? Well, it's certainly pain, but I think for the vast majority of them, it's an identity issue.
Yeah.
They have lost identity, the idea, and, as connection coders say, it's the number one fundamental, foundational, most pressing human need. And I've lost the sense that I matter, not necessarily just to Phyllis, but that I matter, that I have value, that I have significance. Again, this has nothing to do with my identity with God. It has to do with what's happening to me day to day, just the minute to minute situation, interactions, whatever. And I think that's probably ultimately what it all boils down to. And of course, that's my go-to anytime I don't understand what's happening for someone. And I've just learned over the years to go, I bet it's an identity issue. There's got to be an identity issue. There must be identity somewhere in there. And even if they're doing positive behavior that I don't understand, it's like, wait a minute, that person's, become a golfaholic. Like they love golf and they've gotten so good, and all their friends say they're so good at golf. And I'm like, what's happening here? Well, they receive so much identity because they're good at golf. And it's not bad. And the identity quest is not good, bad, right, or wrong. It just is part of the human condition. But I think you're right that so much of the time it's an identity issue, a loss of identity that leads people into scenarios, into behavior that they don't agree with, don't approve of, and yet that's the very decision that they made.
Absolutely. So what would you say, at what point, when should people seek out help?
Sooner than later. Over the years, I've sat with a number of couples that literally had like a big fight, and 3 days later they're in my office, and I think, oh my goodness, if we could do a blood draw here and make this the norm, because it's overwhelming. And I've sat with lots and lots of couples that say, we disconnected 27 years ago, and gonna have a good poker face. That's part of my vocation. But I'm thinking, oh my gosh, really? And now we're just supposed to unravel 25 years, a quarter of a century of pain. So my dream is that, well, and again, this gets back to the definition. The problem is people think the working definition of marriage is such a low standard that they don't know there's a problem.
Right.
And they've been told by everyone around them, both verbally and non-verbally, that, this is just what marriage is. You're going to be so excited on your wedding day, leading up to the wedding day, and then pick a number. Within 6 months, 2 years, it's going to dissipate into some level of blahness. And now it's just all about commitment. So most couples believe that that's the working definition of marriage, so they don't know there's a problem. And for many of them, it takes many, many years. So my dream would be if people go through literally weeks at the most, where they're like, we've been off for 3 weeks. We need to get some outside perspective here.
Right.
And again, that's not pathologized. It doesn't mean, you're a failure, you're a disaster, you're an idiot, you're bad, you're wrong. No, it just means, because you wouldn't do that, your foot starts hurting to the point that you can barely walk. I hope you don't wait 7 years.
Right.
And then you go to the doctor and you say, I can barely walk, my foot hurts so much. And he goes, we're going to have to amputate your leg, at the knee because you have gangrene and because you waited so long. We have to get way, way, way back before that. So I couldn't give a specific answer, but the sooner the better.
Yeah. Well, that's what I love about doing the wheel every day with each other, because for Wes and I, it feels like it's a mini therapy session with each other.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's truly us checking in, us giving each other identity, us sharing what was happening with us without realizing it. So we get these like mini sessions together for therapy. But we also then, we know this stuff, but we still have those struggles. You know, I shared with you last week, we had a pretty good sized disconnect for us that I know we're going to talk about on the podcast soon. But we still needed to seek out help. You know, we still needed that extra outside perspective to ask us both, well, what's happening there? Because even though we're able to go through it with each other, there's still sometimes so much pain or confusion, or it's a reoccurring issue, that having somebody to talk through it with you before it becomes a bigger issue is imperative.
Yeah, and I have to say, because we were so hyped up about this, we do group, what are they called? What do we call them? Group packages? And that's starting to happen around the world now. And there was a group that, and I don't know if there were 40 or 50 of them, but they went through the Connection Codes curriculum together. And then on the, I don't know what it was.
Week,
so the 8th week or 9th week?
Yeah, 8th week.
So they basically do an open mic, and there's a crowd of people there, all these people that just went through the Connection Codes curriculum. And so a couple gets up and shares, which first of all, I'm like, oh my gosh, these people are close to nth degree that they have the courage and the safety to stand up in front of a group of dozens and dozens of people, some of whom they know, some of whom they don't really know, and share candidly and vulnerably. I'm just thrilled and stunned by that. And then the couple who we know really well, they're big time Connection Coders, would engage with the couple that had shared, but then other people from the audience would share. And so this is part of my dream, is that the whole world becomes Connection Coders, so that you have 8 people in your life that you can turn to that can help you. We were sitting around a campfire the other night, and our youngest daughter was there with us, and we just adore her, and we have so much fun with her. But she goes, I only talk to Connection Coders now. She said, in her job she has to. She's a doctor, but she goes, but as far as my friends go, I don't have friends who are Connection Coders. And I don't know. There was so much identity in that for me, but also joy just for her. I'm thinking, yes, that's who you want, is safe people in your life who can be there for you, who know how to who know how to get to the core. Be present with you. It's pretty
well. To elaborate on that might be a little helpful, because what she said was, people that know the Connection Codes follow my energy, and she has a job that's quite, I would say, taxing, and so people's lives are in her hands, and so when she is not working, she wants to surround herself with people who are genuine, who are vulnerable, who are authentic. Who will follow her energy and make space for whatever emotion she's experiencing. And so that's what, she shared. And I do love that about just how we have diligently put together the Connection Codes in a way that people can consume, as much as we would encourage you to put that into your budget, to to have a therapist, to see a therapist, to realize that for some people that is not at this moment in time possible. And so to go, okay, so where do we start? If we can't start with therapy, where do we start? And we love the idea that you can start, obviously just content. The podcast is free. The Instagram information is free.
Right.
The book is affordable. You start by reading the book. The e-course is affordable, and it's so rich, and it walks you through. It gives you the assignments that just get you to dig deeper into yourself and into the relationship. And then, there are those that we always say, it's kind of like then the next piece to really get really deep into what is maybe blocking you in your marriage or in your relationship, whatever that one is. And, there are times people come to us, and this is the other thing that I love, is that we're looking for you to kind of go to that next level in your relationship. But we don't try to say this will only happen if you come for the next 6 months or the next year, or now that you're in therapy, it's therapy for the rest of your life.
Right.
That is not at all what we believe in with therapy, is that we want to be able to help, and we may be able to pinpoint something that you're blocked with, or that some people obviously come in and they're in crisis. And we're there for that as well, crisis. But we don't want you to stay in crisis. We want you to get to a place where you're able to communicate authentically and follow each other's energy and make space for all of that.
Yeah, and it's very much our goal that this becomes just a cultural norm. I don't doubt that Phyllis and I are pretty darn good at what we do. We're very adept at what we do. But I want Tira to become Wes's greatest therapist. I don't really use the term therapy that much because I think there's some skewed things about it culturally. But I want Tira to be able to help Wes. I want Wes to be able to help Tira the most. But I also want them to have Connection Codes couples because other couples are going to be able to see things for Wes and Tira that Wes and Tira are not able to see.
Right.
Because there's just so much emotion involved, and I can't see myself. And for Phyllis and me, I mean, we're fairly old. We've been at this a while, but we sit with other Connection Codes couples who very quickly can see what's happening between us, our dynamic, our interaction, and literally are able to be present and to follow my energy and go, oh yeah, so what happens for you there, Glenn? And it's a little bit of an odd feeling because most of these are couples that we have helped with the Connection Codes.
Right.
So it feels a little bit odd, but it's also thrilling. And of course, I'm a bit of a smart aleck at times, but because I'm like, don't pull that Connection Codes crap on me. I saw right through your ploy there. But it's true. I love it. It's just amazing. And they're literally just the 3 phrases. And they go, oh, yeah, so what happens for you there? What am I missing? And it's amazing to me. Again, we're the founders of the Connection Codes, but it's just a human condition.
Right.
We're just pilgrims on the journey. We're humans like everybody else. And to have people in our lives who are able to help us with that, including our own children who are able literally to follow our energy and just be present with us. It's stunning to me, the power of it.
Okay, so I want to say at this point, the best way to get started with the Connection Codes, one of the ways to really begin to dive in is right now there's a free class on the website. Go to connectioncodes.co and you can put in your email and getting started. The many lessons that you have to introduce what the Connection Codes actually is, because we are here in this space breaking down topics and sharing deeper, but we're not exactly. This isn't where we can teach everything. We have a whole course built for that. So you can go to the website to get started there. But then also, if you are finding yourself really stuck on something, and not obviously if it's been a year, but even the last 3 weeks, if you've been experiencing that disconnect, that is your signal to reach out to somebody. That is your signal to call and get help, and Glenn does have his private practice. We do have some certified Connection coaches that you can access, but get the help that you need with somebody you feel safe with. So thank you so much for sharing that. It's really good to even think for myself, the identity is so vital that it is often a foundation of where our symptoms come from. So we need to always be aware of what's happening with us with that. So do you want to dive in and wrap us up with the core emotion wheel?
Yeah. Let's do the wheel. For me, a lot of this was yesterday, just sitting with some people. I really got hit with shame. Somebody got going talking about Brene Brown, who I really love and respect, and I think she's remarkable. But the more they talked about her, the less I felt about myself. I thought, wow, I don't even exist anymore. Yeah. They just went on and on talking about her. I feel guilt in that sometimes, just that, how can I do more, do better? I'm so bad at so many business things and taking this global. It's a lot of joy because we have a team around us now. And I forget that a lot, that I don't have to do everything. I need to just do some things, and other people will take, take care of so many other things. I feel anger at times when, especially today, just talking about therapy. The vast majority of couples I sit with have probably been to 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 therapists, and have experienced so much wounding and damage, and or nothing. Just spent a lot of money for no benefit at all.
Wow.
I felt hurt yesterday. I had sat with a couple, and the wife was really mad at me because about some things that I'd missed with her, which I had. I went way too far, too fast, and she was pissed, which I was glad that she came at me.
Yeah.
But there was some pain in it in the moment. And a little bit of fear in that too, because I was like, whoa, she lit up. And yeah, as a therapist, number one, you're never allowed to defend yourself. Number two, you never know what people are going to do next. And I've never had anything crazy happen, but it could. So, and there's sometimes, that's one of the things I love about getting to work with you, babe, is because sometimes when I'm sitting with a couple, just me, I do feel loneliness. Like, man, I could really use a partner here.
Yeah.
I love getting to do sessions with you because you are just amazing at tag teaming with me. And then sometimes when it's just me, I'm like, this is all on me now. And sad. Let's see, when's the last time I felt some sadness? Gracious, I need more sadness in my life. What am I missing here? I'm sure there's been something this week that I'm just kind of missing. What's a pain point? I felt some yesterday morning. Got up, we didn't have any milk. I didn't get to have cereal.
Yeah.
That was sad.
That's rough.
I told you in the moment. I said, sad, sad, sad. And you said, oh, what's the sad, babe? I said, we don't have any milk. And you just oohed me. You were present with me. Really cool. Yeah.
Wow. Thanks for sharing.
Mm-hmm.
Did you do them all?
I think so.
Okay.
It's close.
Yeah. So I think felt guilt earlier about not getting everything done on the list, and still having people asking for information that I haven't created or put together, put on paper. So I think that guilt also just goes into the shame of just not being able to get more done in a day. And I definitely have not figured out this part of my life.
Wow.
Because when I ran the other company, I had no choice.
Yeah.
The day started early, and there was no, and now I feel like it, and we do a lot of late night stuff. So I just have to adjust, but I feel shame at times that I just can't get it all done. And I think there is just some core level anger for me in being able to rise up and like use that anger to really become who I need to be.
Wow.
Because I think with the connection codes, there is a need that I need to not, I think with my other company, often it was like, I felt like I was just barely getting it done, like just got just enough done to keep it all going. And this is not that. And so I think that the anger of just letting that be a driver for me to really become, in a sense, what the world needs. Because we have a lot of people to reach. And at times I limit myself. So I feel anger about that because I think that there's fear that I'm not enough, in the sense of that people, I have fear of rejection by other people.
Wow.
And so I think that limits where I go with this. And, it is at times a lonely journey, because I do feel like we, it's almost like there's a loneliness because of the need to do better. And so at times I feel, whoa, was everyone else on this same boat trying to do the very best? And so there's some loneliness in that. I think sad. I got a text from just my sister earlier, and she had blacked out and fallen and hurt herself pretty badly, and just feel sad in that news. And she lives far away, so it's not easy for me to be there for her at this point. Hurt. I think that the other day I communicated an emotion about buying extra mixed nuts, and I think you were I think in some ways you were entertained by my expression, but I think in the moment I felt hurt that you reacted to my emotion. So Joy, I absolutely love this time of year. Oh, I love spring. I love that everything's coming back alive. I love seeing the growth in all of our flower beds, and just feel so much joy about the warm weather and the season that we're in.
Yeah, cool.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Yes, I love spring. Oh my gosh, it does. It feels so good.
Yes.
it makes you feel alive again. You know,
we survived winter.
We survived. Yes. So thank you all so much for being here today. If you have not already shared this episode or shared this podcast, share it with your friends. Like that is so helpful in helping other people know what is available to them so they can get the help that they need. We all feel so lonely when we're going through things. And by sharing, it shows, hey, I'm in this too. And we're all figuring this out, and you're not alone, and we all are struggling. So let's just support each other in that. So
love that.
Share this episode or your favorite episode. And again, you can go to connectioncodes.co to connect with us, to get access to our free mini class that you can just gain so much in getting started on this journey with us. So thank you for being here. So
let's mention that if you have questions, please let us know, because we would love to do a podcast on your questions. And if you have not, it's not called rate, it's called
review.
Yeah. If you've not done a review, please leave a review. 5-star review.
5-star.
Amazing.
Yes.
We want to make sure that you know that you need this.
You deserve this.
Let's do this.
Let's do this.